Imagine you receive a gift, a watch. You wear it for 5 years, maybe 10. You scratch it a little, the bracelet shows some wear, and then you sell it. And instead of getting less than what it was worth, you get more. Sometimes double, sometimes triple. That's not a fantasy. That's what's been happening with Rolex watches for the past decade. And the craziest part? Rolex didn't accidentally stumble into this. They engineered it. Every part of how this brand operates, production, distribution, pricing, even the certified pre-owned program they launched just 2 years ago, has been quietly designed to make sure that a Rolex, even a used one, never really loses its power in the market. Today we're breaking down exactly how Rolex controls the second-hand market, why a used watch can cost more than a new one, and what this whole phenomenon tells us about how people are thinking about where to put their money in this year.
So Rolex is basically setting the bar high, making sure the piece itself meets the standard, so I can feel as a buyer in the secondary market that it's met a certain level.
Both mechanically and cosmetically.
It's a brilliant idea.
Let's start with something that sounds completely backwards. A brand new Rolex Daytona, straight from the authorized dealer, never worn, factory fresh, retails for around $14,800. That's the official price, the number Rolex sets. The number no dealer is allowed to go above or below. Now go online, find a used Daytona, one that someone has already worn, and you'll find listings sitting at $38,000, sometimes more. You're paying over 2.5 times the new price for a used product. In almost any other category, this makes 0 sense. A used car is worth less. A used phone is worth less. A used anything is worth less. Because wear and time reduce value. That's just how things work. Except with certain Rolex models. There, the rules flip completely. And to understand why, you have to understand how Rolex controls supply. Because that's where the whole story begins. Rolex produces roughly 1 million watches per year. Sounds like a lot, until you realize this is a brand that people on every continent want. 1 million is nothing. And here's the thing, Rolex knows this. They've always known this, and they choose not to produce more. This isn't because they can't scale, it's a deliberate strategy. Every Rolex is assembled by hand and goes through extensive quality testing, and Rolex has repeatedly said they would rather limit production than compromise on that. But the side effect of that choice, or maybe it's the whole point, is permanent scarcity. Rolex then takes that scarcity and amplifies it through something called selective distribution. They handpick a limited number of authorized dealers, and then those dealers don't even receive full inventory. Each authorized retailer gets a controlled allocation, meaning they might receive only a handful of the most popular models per year. Not per month, per year. So if you walk into a Rolex boutique today and ask for a Submariner or a Daytona, there's a good chance the answer is, we don't have it. Come back in 2 years, maybe longer. This creates waiting lists that stretch 12, 18, 24 months. And for buyers who don't want to wait, who have the money right now and want the watch right now, there's only one place to go, the second-hand market, where the watch is available today, at whatever price the seller decides to charge.
And what we've seen is a lot of people are gravitating towards Rolex certified pre-owned watches over new watches from other brands.
Well, it's availability, right?
Yes.
The used watch market has been growing for years, but the last few years turned it into something no one fully predicted. Pre-owned watch sales hit $22 billion in 2021. The used sector started growing faster than the new market. Online platforms dedicated entirely to buying and selling luxury watches started doing hundreds of millions in annual sales. One platform alone reported $100 million in sales in a single year, with 30 to 40% year-over-year growth consistently. And then the pandemic happened. Starting in 2020, something unusual hit the luxury goods market. Stock markets were volatile. Crypto was exploding. Meme stocks were making everyday people feel like they could beat the system. There was a flood of capital looking for somewhere to go, and a lot of it landed in physical assets. Art, sneakers, bags, and watches. Used luxury watches started selling for 1.5 to 3 times their retail price. Dealers who had bought watches years earlier were suddenly sitting on incredible profit, and new buyers, seeing those returns, started thinking of Rolex not just as a watch, but as an investment. 29% of collectors in one major survey said they paid above retail price for their most recent pre-owned watch, and 40% said the main reason they went to the used market wasn't price. It was to avoid the waiting list on new ones. That's the loop Rolex built. Artificial scarcity in the primary market pushes buyers into the secondary market. Secondary market demand drives up prices, which creates more demand, which feeds the scarcity narrative, round and round. High prices reinforce the idea that Rolex holds value, which creates more demand, which feeds the scarcity narrative, round and round. For a long time, Rolex watched all of this happen from the sidelines. They made new watches. Dealers sold them. Whatever happened after that, the resales, the markups, the gray market speculation, wasn't officially Rolex's business until late 2022, when Rolex did something that made the entire industry pay attention. They launched a certified pre-owned program. Here's how it works. Dealers can now send used Rolexes, watches at least 3 years old, back to Rolex. The company verifies authenticity, checks the movement, services the watch, and issues an official certificate. The dealer then resells it with full Rolex backing, a 2-year warranty included. For buyers, especially first-timers who are nervous about spending $15,000 on a watch from a stranger online, that certificate changes everything. It removes the biggest fear. Is this real? Is this working? But think about what this move actually means for Rolex as a business. For decades, billions of dollars in used Rolex sales happened every year, and Rolex received none of it. The dealers profited, the resellers profited, the platforms profited. Rolex got nothing from the second transaction, or the third, or the 10th. The CPO program changes that equation. Now Rolex is involved. Now Rolex gets a piece. And more importantly, Rolex now has a mechanism to influence how used watches are priced and perceived, even after the first sale.
Validate it, to approve it to a certain level of quality, and then resell it under this new higher standard.
Correct.
Some independent dealers say they're not worried about competition. The market is big enough for everyone. But make no mistake, this is Rolex extending its control further down the chain than it's ever gone before. Not all used Rolexes are created equal. The same model can have a price gap of thousands of dollars between 2 listings, and it comes down to a few key things. Condition is the most obvious. Sharp case edges, minimal bracelet wear, clean crystal. These details matter enormously to buyers. A watch that looks close to new commands a premium. One with heavy scratches or replaced parts gets discounted fast. Box and papers, the original packaging and warranty card, can add significant value. For many serious collectors, a watch without its original documentation is a fundamentally different purchase. It raises questions. Who owned it? Was it serviced properly? Is everything original? That uncertainty lowers the price. Original parts matter too. Rolex watches that haven't had components swapped out, even during servicing, are considered more authentic by collectors. And authenticity, in this market, is everything. And then there's something more intangible: provenance and era. A Rolex from the 1970s with original patina on the dial isn't just a watch, it's a piece of history. Some vintage pieces sell for many times the price of a modern equivalent purely because of what they represent. Collectors aren't just buying timekeeping, they're buying a story. Here's where it gets interesting from a pure money perspective. A Rolex, if you treat it well, doesn't just hold its value, it can appreciate. And that's turned watches, specifically certain Rolex models, into something that looks a lot like an investment vehicle. People have started thinking about this alongside other alternative assets. Fine art has historically appreciated over time, but the barriers to entry are high and the market is opaque. Classic cars can deliver strong returns but come with storage, insurance, and maintenance costs that eat into gains. Real estate is the classic store of value, but illiquid and capital intensive. And crypto, well, the volatility speaks for itself. Watches, particularly Rolex, started to fill a different niche. Relatively accessible entry points compared to a painting or an apartment. Portable and physical. Globally recognized and liquid. You can sell a Submariner in Tokyo or London or New York. And for the right models, a track record of appreciation that, in the past few years, outperformed a lot of traditional assets. Even a watch received as a gift follows this logic. If it comes with the original box and papers, if you wear it carefully and keep it serviced by authorized professionals, you're not just wearing jewelry, you're holding something that could be worth significantly more in 5 or 10 years. The market did cool down somewhat after the 2021 to 2022 peak. Supply flooded back in, prices on some references came back down to earth. But the underlying dynamic hasn't changed. People still want these watches more than Rolex makes them. And when demand consistently outpaces supply, the math tends to work in the owner's favor. So here's what Rolex actually built. Not just a watch company, a system. A system where scarcity creates desire. Desire creates a secondary market. The secondary market creates investment logic. And the investment logic creates more desire. Every layer feeds the next. And now, with the certified pre-owned program, Rolex has found a way to sit at the center of that entire loop, not just the beginning of it. The question isn't whether Rolex is worth the money anymore. The question is, who's really in control of the price? Because increasingly, the answer is Rolex, even in a market they technically don't run. If this changed how you think about luxury goods as assets, drop a comment. Do you think a watch is a legitimate investment or just an expensive hobby? We want to know. Like the video, subscribe so you never miss our next breakdown of the money hiding in plain sight. See you next time.